Okay, so now I'm going to make a video that I call Don't Deny What Is. Now, science says that a spider cannot get much bigger than your hand. Alright, it can't get very much bigger than that because of the way they take in oxygen and the way their exoskeleton is set up will not allow them to get that much bigger. Right, and the same applies with, most arachnids and insects and creatures of that nature because of how they take up oxygen and their exoskeleton. Now, let's say you and me were walking one day and we suddenly saw a spider the size of a car. We saw a Shelob, I don't know, from Lord of the Rings. But yeah, let's just say we see a spider the size of a car. And I say, oh my gosh, there's a spider the size of the car. We better get the heck out of here. We better run, and you're just like, no, you see, because of the way spiders take in oxygen, that they cannot grow to be bigger than the size of your hand, and because of their exoskeleton and blah 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 blah, therefore this spider isn't real. And it's like, there's one right freaking in front of you, and so I feel like this is a huge problem I see in like science and religion and like so many other things, is that they'll try to like bring up some expertise, they'll try to bring up science and scientific facts, but the fact is that even though like it seems like it would make sense, like that would be like the truth, like it seems logical, like that's what works, it can't prove or disprove what's right in front of you. What's blatantly right there. That's the thing, is we need to change our science to follow what really is real, rather than using our science to try and determine what is real, how something is real. Like, you could try and study how the spider got that big, but you can't use science to deny its existence if it's right in front of you, right? I mean, that's just simple truth, and you also often can't use science to trump historic facts because, I mean, these are eyewitnesses' accounts, that's just like if someone were to say, oh, look, there's a huge dragon, and you're like, oh, that's just a fairy tale. And I'm like, well, you can't really misprove that with science. If you're going to go about misproving it, you have to go by, other historic knowledge and expertise and so forth. Like, let me give you an example. Let's think of an example. So, the cure for cancer. A lot of people just, think that's a conspiracy theory and that's not real. And I've heard so many people do so many scientific stuff about how it does work, and then they'll go and they'll say, oh no, it doesn't work, and this is scientifically why it won't work, and blah 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 blah. And I'll look at them and I'll say, I don't know much about science, I don't know much about anatomy, I don't know much about how it works. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you on that stance. I know it works, not how, I just know it does. Because, I mean, just read the accounts of people who have actually used it and it has actually worked. And then people try to say, oh, well, what's the word I'm looking for? People who have actually, used it, like reviews from other people, those aren't very accurate sources. And it's like, well, no. Reviews should be the most accurate source, because you can't go by what a company says that's selling a product, or someone says, because they're going to be biased, and you can't go by what the experts say, because even though they're the experts, what they say doesn't make it real. It's not like magic God, let there be light, and just because you have a college degree means, oh, there's light all of a sudden, It's like that. And so you see the people who have been cured of their cancer. Yes, I do believe there are many natural cures for cancer, and you see them, and people will write that off as a conspiracy, and they'll say, oh, it's not real, it's not there, and they'll use science to disprove that. And like, you can't. You can't use science to misprove that. Like, because it's there. You know, it's real. You can try and use science to figure out why, but you can't say that it's not real. If it's happening, if it's right in front of you, you can't deny that. You know, and let me think of another example. I remember once I stated that parents should not spank their children. You know, it's wrong. You know, I'm not the type that says, you know, you should be arrested if you spank your children, but I don't think you should do it. You know, it's wrong, it's morally unacceptable. And then somebody told me, oh, well, the Bible says that in a certain chapter that, you know, spanking your children is good and it'll save them from, like, the fires of the devil or whatever, and they'll turn out to be good people. But you ever notice that that's not what happens? You know, children who are spanked lose IQ points. You look at the records, children who were spanked are more likely to go and abuse other people and to act like tyrants. Why? Because they were treated like tyrants, they were hit. And so now they think that it's more okay for them to go and hit other people. You know, don't spank your son and wonder why he hits his little sister. That doesn't make sense at all. You know, parents lead by example. And again, you know, spanking does not turn them into better people. It makes them insecure. It turns them into worse people in the long run, more likely to treat other people bad and to act tyrannical around other people. You know, so, you mean, I'm not saying, like, the Bible isn't true. I mean, you could say that, you know, the rod is just a metaphor, but you can't come to me and use the Bible to misprove what I'm looking at and what I'm seeing and what I'm observing, you know. Here's another thing. Evolutionists, you know, I understand, you know, like, there's probably a lot of them who are, like, really legit and they're trying to, like, find the truth and, you know, digging fossils and, you know, whatnot. But if you find a spearhead in a dinosaur bone, which has been found, it's true that people have found, like, spearheads in dinosaur bones, well, you can't just write that off. You know, you can't deny what's right there. You can't just say, oh, well, you know, science and carbon dating and whatever has proved that humans and dinosaurs weren't living together, but why then the heck have things like this been found, you know, and why are there pictures and ancient paintings of dinosaurs, and if you're just going to write that off and say, oh, well, you know, it's just humans digging up the fossils and putting them together, which, you know, the ancients didn't have much knowledge in dinosaur anatomy back then, you know. But if you're just going to find the fossils and put them together, then how come people have pictures of, like, painted of dinosaurs with stripes, and then a few years later they actually dug up a dinosaur that was fossilized, and they recognized that it had the same stripe pattern that was in the pictures that they drew? And I think some accounts of it have even said that they could, like, change. I forgot whether it was the historic accounts or rather it was the scientific accounts that said they thought it could change colors like a chameleon. I don't know how you'd know that. But, yeah, it's like, you can't deny what just is, you know. You can't deny that, like, there are all these dragon legends, and a lot of them happen to be like dinosaurs, but oh, they're a different creature, you know. And then another thing people try to do, I noticed, is you'll say something that's against what the common folk believe, and they'll say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, that's BS, I'm not going to believe these dumb conspiracies. I'm like, well, you can't just say that it's a conspiracy, you know, that's not backed up by anything, that's just you wanting to say what you want, you know, that's pure emotional, not logical. I mean, like, you're emotionally taught that conspiracy theories are BS, and so then, emotionally, you're gonna reject them, you know. And again, you know, I'm not saying all conspiracies are true, I'm not saying that they're all false, I think a lot of them are true, but I mean, to say that there are no conspiracies and to shut out people who have different views of you as conspiracy theorists, well, I mean, that's just like saying, people can't lie. People nowadays, like, they look at people who believe in, like, 9/11 truths and stuff like that, and they say, oh, you guys are so stupid. How dare you believe that our government would do that? Well, the Germans thought their government was benevolent, and Hitler disguised his troops as Polish troops to blow up one of his own buildings so that he would have an excuse to go to war with Poland. Okay? Emperor Nero burned down Rome and blamed it on Christians because they were a threat to his power. Yeah, it happens. People lie and people set this up like that. So, let me tell you something. If Emperor Nero could burn down Rome and blame it on Christians, and Hitler could blow up his own building and blame it on the Polish, then why is it so far-fetched? And those are both well-accepted facts, too. So why is it so far-fetched that our government couldn't do that? And it's like, oh, because we're a part of their empire, And it's just like saying, again, like back to my original point, is that we see evidence for things. We see things all the time, and we just try to deny it. And then let's get back to that whole, quote, expert thing I said. Just because you have, like, a college degree in something, I mean, sure, you know more, but that doesn't make you right all the time. And again, it doesn't mean what you say is, like, magically truth. And it doesn't mean that you weren't taught by people who were themselves biased, or the people who taught them were biased. So, I mean, in the end, you can be an expert on something that doesn't hold ground, and again, what is, just is. The truth exists, and it's separate, and it's indefinite from what everyone else thinks. It doesn't matter if you are a, quote, expert. An expert is just someone who tries to find the truth. It's not someone who therefore knows everything about the truth. It's not, based on any, scientific bias or anything like that. I mean, the truth is just there. It's true. And you can't use science or anything to disprove it, because it's just there. It's just like if I'm standing right in front of you and you use science to try and misprove me. You can't do that, because I'm standing right in front of you. You can't. And that's just the thing, is that, people nowadays, like, they're so stupid, they're so into science, they're like, oh, I'm gonna use science to disprove this and disprove that, and I'm like, well, how come you can see it, So anyways, that's all for my rant for now. I'll see you guys later, and Auf Wiedersehen.